Welcome, welcome to our amazing conversation today about the High Priestess. And I have the incredible Elayne Kalila, who's with us, who is the founder of Priestess Presence and actually recently came out with a new book. And I absolutely love this woman. She walks the walk. She is the epitome of collaboration and co-creation. And there's no one else that I'd rather talk about the High Priestess with you than with Elayne. So I'm just going to dive right in with her and introduce you. So hello, welcome.
Hello, hello, beloved sisters, and thank you for inviting me, Tanya. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we are going to just dive in.
Great.
Because that's what we do best. And we just want to get straight into content because there's so much that we want to cover today.
Wow.
So let's just start with, for you, who is this High Priestess and what is this archetypal energy of the High Priestess?
So I'm just going to start by taking a breath in and you can invite you all to come with me just to feel the frequency of the word priestess, of this energetic. And what I'm aware of as I begin to speak is that I'm calling forward this energy of the priestess. And this archetype of the priestess is one who is part ceremonial leader, part seer, part oracle. She is an aspect of our being that has been in deep forgetting. In other words, she's been deeply hidden within our psyche for many thousands of years. Women as ceremonial leaders, women as spiritual leaders, women as those who are holding the portals open between the worlds, those who are medicine women, those who are midwives of the soul. And some of these terms may sound familiar to you because there's something quite incredible happening. And what I've been witnessing around this archetype of the priestess is this resurgence, this remembrance, this reawakening of our place in creating cultures that honor the sacred, that know how to move between the sacred and the profane and how to marry together our humanity and our divinity. And this is really the calling of the priestess, the archetype that lives within every single one of us. It's not like she's just living in me, beloved. If you're here, she's living within you. It's part of you that's waking up. And what I love to say about the priestess is that she is a vessel for the divine to flow through. We, in the 13 Moon Mystery School lineage, which is the lineage that I am an ordained priestess of and a focalizer of, and it's a lot of my work in the world is really around initiating women into that path of remembrance. In that lineage, we speak about being a priestess is to become a static free station through which the divine can flow freely. I'm going to say that one more time, becoming a static free station through which the divine can flow freely. And what that really means is being able to cultivate this vessel, this body, this physical body, this emotional body, this spiritual body, to cultivate a way of being able to empty out of our personality. And there's nothing wrong with a personality. It's not like we're saying, oh, there's something bad and wrong, but to be able to empty out of that which is normally driving our everyday consciousness, right? And to become available to the multiple dimensions of knowing that are existing simultaneously. Only most of us are living in the 3D version. Not all of us, but most of us. That's where we operate from. That's where our ego gets stuff done, and appointments and chores and errands and all that stuff, right? Tends to happen in 3D consciousness. And the priestess says, yes. And there is all of this other dimensions available to us that are simultaneously existing, and within them have many other ways of knowing about what it means to be here on this planet, to be part of this collective consciousness, to be part of Mama Gaia, to be part of something that is way bigger than just our own personal selves. And so the priestess plugs us in, literally, to the collective matrix. She's the one who holds a wider deeper space for us to experience who we actually are within. So you mentioned earlier, Tanya, that, I just wrote a book, or a book wrote me. I'm not even sure. It's more the book wrote me. And the name of the book, the title that came through, was The Sacred Call of the Ancient Priestess. And it's a book of remembrance. It's a retelling of a myth. And the myth, in very short form, is that, thousands and thousands of years ago, the divine feminine began an underworld journey. It was at the beginning of patriarchy. It was at the beginning of what we've come to know as the Judeo-Christian kind of ideology that's been ruling our world for at least the last 2,000 to 3,000 years. And with the advent of that shift into this patriarchal values, the valuing of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit, that wasn't even named as the feminine, but was called the Holy Ghost, right? That whole kind of Judeo-Christian ideology, the divine feminine was really put into a deep place underneath the ground, deep in the underworld. And she's been there germinating for thousands of years. And what's come to my awareness, and it's why I was so delighted and honored to be called here with you all, is that this archetype is now re-emerging in our collective consciousness for a reason. And the reason is because we are needed now. It's time for us to step back forward again into our sacred role, to be holding a position in consciousness that's been missing for a really long time, and to bring ourselves more fully to the world through this lens. And the priestess is one who is adept in listening within. The priestess is one who is adept at the sacred arts of ceremony and creating transformational spaces, spaces where we get to heal within, spaces where we get to discover who we actually are, spaces where we get access into the bigger version of our lives rather than our small self getting a bigger picture. Priestess is also, one who anoints those who are asking for healing. She's one who uses song and dance and poetry and art as vehicles of transformation and healing. And so you may be hearing in what I'm sharing, you may be saying, yes, that's me, yes, that's me, yes, that's me. That's because it's waking up within us as a collective. And so that's why I think, Tanya, you called me here, right? It's because there's a position that this archetype is holding now for us, and we're being asked to step back in and to understand what that actually means.
Okay, so I love everything that you said. And so I want to start diving into and translating this into facilitating circle. And so I love everything that you're saying of like there's this re-emerging and this reawakening of this archetypal energy. And it's for those of us who are doing ceremony and anointing people and creating these transformational spaces, circle being one of them. And I think this is why priestess and circles are emerging all over the planet right now. And you who are watching this video or listening to this audio, you've been called. And so this is probably really, really resonant. So Elayne, I'd love for us to dive into that piece of how does this translate into circle and facilitating circle? I'm just going to stop there.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, a circle is exactly that, right? It's a circle. And the sacred geometry of a circle is incredibly powerful. When we access that sacred geometry of the circle, what we're really defining is there is no one of us who is in charge, right? Because in a circle, we are, oh, you know what? Let me just get rid of that. Goddess was calling. Love how that happens. She goes, yes, that's right. So this is what happens in a circle is that we get to sit in equality with one another. When we sit in a circle, there is no one at the top. Like when we sit in a circle, everybody is be able to see by everybody else. There is no one person who is leading, as it were. So I want to start by saying that. And that's true of the priestess as an archetype in circle. As a priestess, I'm not leading the circle. it's not my job to lead it from the old paradigm version of what leading means. And I love that you use the word facilitate. I use the word in my lineage, focalize. And so facilitation and focalizing something means that you are responsible for setting the energetic space. And what that means, and everyone knows this, right? When you talk about holding space, I want you just to feel that in your body. What does it mean to hold space? And this is a therapeutic term that we've worked with for years as therapists, but I think it's coming into our more mainstream understanding. So when we hold space, you'll see I'm actually moving my arms and I'm feeling into this kind of womb space, right? There's this space that we can get to hold. And when we hold space, we're really creating a womb within which something else can happen. And in a womb, in our bodies, you know, it's a space for new life to take place, right? It's a space for something to grow. And so one of the functions that the priestess offers us and the archetype offers us in terms of facilitating and opening circles is that as the priestess, when you are priestessing, you are creating the space. And there are 1,000 different ways to create space, right? But the function of creating space is that you're demarcating something. You're saying when you enter into this space, we are moving out of everyday consciousness and we are moving into an agreement field that we are here in service to something greater than our personalities or than our, you know, ego minds. We're here moving into the possibility of something bigger, something wider, something more magnificent than what we might be aware of in our everyday consciousness. And I know you all know this because you've walked into circles and you felt it, right? You feel it when you walk into a circle that's being held. Your whole body goes, oh. And it's held in a number of ways. It could be just through music. It could be through candles being lighted in the room. It could be an altar. It could be through someone chanting and singing. It could be through simple eye gazing and silence. But there is something happening in that circle that's telling you where we're entering into ritual space. And the definition of a ritual space, which is really, I call the priestess the technician of the sacred, right? She is the one who knows the conditions that are necessary in order for transformation and transmutation to take place. That's really what she knows. And she has all these different tools in her priestess tool belt to create that kind of an environment. So let's just talk about what some of those are, because you're going to recognize them. And I want you to get that there's an architecture at play that's way beyond our own individual minds. This is a sacred architecture that's existed for thousands of years that we are remembering. So being in circle is one of them. Bringing in the spirit through light, through the candles. Bringing in your voice. Bringing in the sacred arts of dancing, of anointing. Bringing in just the acknowledgement that I'm going to look at you in the eyes and I'm going to ask you, are you willing to drop out of your mind and enter into this space and be here in your heart? Right? These are all conditions that create space for us to be able to enter what's known as a liminal zone, right? And a liminal zone is a space between a space. It's neither who you were before and who you will be when you exit. Right? The liminal space is a free space where you get to let go of, transmute, transform, release, whatever it is that may be in the way that's ready to be done, and to claim that which is being born within you in this moment. And this is the art of the priestess. The priestess knows that we are being born and we are dying in every moment. And when we make ritual space around that, we get to demarcate it. We get to acknowledge it. And thus we are different when we leave a circle than when we enter. And I know you all know that experience, right? It's very, on the surface, incredibly simple. And the priestess archetype empowers us to get that the conditions that are being set by all of you when you facilitate circle are so important to the success of that circle. And they are largely unseen. You know, the archetype that holds this in mythology is Hestia. I don't know if all of you have heard of the archetype of Hestia, and she is the keeper of the hearth. She's the one who keeps the flame burning in the temple. She brings fresh flowers. She sweeps the floors. She sings into the corners of the temple space. She rings the bells. You know, she does all of these things in service to creating an energetic space that when you walk into it, you know you're in something special. And that's the art of the priestess. And it's largely unseen. It's not external. It's a lot to do with how you are being internally. Remember I said at the beginning, you know, to be a priestess is to be a static free station. So when you're facilitating, the invitation from the priestess is to drop all of your own preoccupations with, am I doing it right? Or is this okay? Or is that okay? And to really get centered and to drop down and in, because the degree to which you as a facilitator or focalizer drop down and in is the degree to which the rest of the beings in the circle can drop down and in. You're setting the frequency. It's like you're hitting a chord, a note, and everybody else is going to literally resonate and play to that note. And that's part of what it means. And the priestess is such an amazing archetype, because when we awaken her within us, we discover that we know how to do this. It's not, you know, it's not something that we don't know. It's intrinsic. It's intrinsic to us as women. These are the feminine arts that we are very good at, you know, creating spaces for others to be growing inside of, to be nourished in, right? That's what woman's body is all about. And so it's a remembrance of these innate skills, and there's such joy inside of it. That's part of what I love about it, you know, and I love about your work is activating these sistership circles, is there's a joy in remembering, oh, I know how to do this. So that's a little bit, you know, you want to pick out of that I said.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love to do here. Real quick, so you could just repeat that one line. The high priestess is the static.
Yeah, so I don't use the word high priestess, and I'm just going to say why. I use the word priestess because high always associates high, right? It's above somehow. And whilst I understand that's the Tarot term, and we've come with that term, I drop the high because I don't have the sense that there's any one priestess who is higher than the other.
Mm.
So that's part of my own sort of
distinction.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to repeat this as a transmission. So I just want you to receive this and just go without your mind. So just drop out of your mind for a moment and really hear this. The priestess is a static free station, a vessel through which the divine can flow freely.
I love that. Thank you.
And this is the thing, is when you feel the ability to enter this static free station is just ecstatic. Mm. It's interesting that they're somehow related, right? They're static and ecstatic. I had never really noticed that. Mother just pinged me on that. So we might want to look into that a little bit. But there is this feeling that I'm in this moment as I let this energy come through, which is that everything else gets quiet and still. And I feel such vibrancy. And everything becomes more defined in my vision and yet more soft. And that's an interesting distinction. It's both. It's like you're holding an exquisite laser beam of focus, whilst also at the same time being soft and diffused. You're not holding it, trying to control it. You're holding it in a way of allowing it to become what it wants to become. Does this sound really similar to parenting? It's like mothering.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you try to control a child, you won't get anywhere. But
no.
You have to hold them with that energy that is both saying, I am holding you to this frequency. And in that, I'm also acknowledging that this may too shift, and I am not here to control how it shifts, because that's your beingness. And as priestess, you really are being that space.
That's landing really deeply for me.
Yeah, as a mom, right? As a new mom, still navigating all of these growing. And that's really in circle when we're offering to priestess one another. That's what we are doing. We are saying, I'm going to hold the space for you so that you can let go for a moment to experience something new. That's it. And this is the way that we're going to do that, is through whatever the medium is. But the intention is that you are absolutely, in the words we have, in charge, leading, they're so difficult because they come with very linear, very masculinized ways of understanding. And I like to use the word, you are the tuning fork for which the circle is resonating. And the clearer the sound that you send out from your own vessel, the more clarity will be in the space.
That's brilliant. Okay, so this leads me to the next question. And this is a distinction here, because what we stand for at Sistership Circle is that facilitators can get paid.
Yeah.
And so there's this, it almost feels like this paradox. It's like, okay, well, Elayne, you're telling me that we're all priestessing and we're all equal in the circle, and there is no one really in charge or the leader. And in our old way of being or thinking, it's, pyramid, one person's on top, everyone's following suit. And so that model is really easy, like to say, oh, okay, so that person gets paid.
Sure.
And yet here in Circle, we're holding the space of having everyone priestess each other and creating the circle of equality. And we're all holding that. But, the question that so many women, and there's such a rubbing here of circle should be free. Why should I get paid to hold the space? And you and I both know, you get paid to do this. And, you get paid well to be a priestess and to hold space and to hold circle. And so do I. So I would love for you to share on this piece of this distinction here of
it's such
a facilitator
challenge. It's a super big challenge. And so I want to start off by saying that when you choose to step in as, in my languaging, the focalizer, in your languaging, the facilitator of anything, you are choosing to be the portal holder. And that's everything from the linear logistical organization of time and space and reality and getting people together and being in charge of holding the energy of what it is that's getting created. And that takes a lot of work. I will say it time and time again. I just said it to my team this morning, like this week I have not been in live transmission to anybody for a whole week. And I think it's the first week I've had without offering a live transmitted temple in months. And I'm just aware of how much space I have this week because I'm not offering transmission or offering holding temple for the wide community that I serve. And it's easy for me to forget how much energy that takes, how much energy it is to hold a coherent space, how much energy it is to be the one who's actually keeping it alive and tending the hearth and encouraging everybody else to tend the hearth with them. It takes someone to, in my tradition, focalize. And that really means hold the energy true. If you don't hold the energy true, if someone does not do that, there is nothing happening. You know how it is? Like if someone doesn't hold it, it just dissipates. Like it goes down the plug hole. So we need to not diminish and minimize the work that's involved in the sister who's choosing to step forward and say, I'm willing to put myself in that position and hold you all accountable and hold us all accountable to showing up in this space. And I'm organizing the space and I'm building the altars and I'm doing this and I'm whatever it is you're doing, right? All the stuff that's necessary to this happening. And then I'm going to sit in circle and I'm going to be, elect myself as the one who holds the space so that you can all come in and actually be held. And that sounds so very simple, but I know for anybody who's ever been the focal point for anything, I don't care what it is, a birthday party, a wedding, it's a lot of work to cat wrangle, as we call it where I come from, wrangling people and getting people organized. It's energetically to get coherency, which is really what I'm seeking for in a circle, right? It takes a lot of work. So there's that aspect to it, which I believe is so difficult for us to ask for energetic remuneration around, because in our culture it's kind of been undervalued. It's like, well, what is that holding space? I mean, what does that even mean? Like, you know, when I would first talk about this, people would be like, what does that mean? And luckily at that point I came from, you know, I was trained as a psychotherapist for many years, and I said, well, but as a therapist, you think you're paying me because of all my fancy techniques, but you're not really. You're paying for the time and the space to be held and to be tracked and to be actually, you know, accountable to someone. And why do we have to pay for that? Well, you know, that's the way at this point in our culture, we developed this whole system called money, which was the way that we then exchanged goods and services, right? You know, my remembrance of being a priestess 4,000 years ago, I didn't get paid. But at the same time, I lived in the temple, and, you know, people donated everything to us because we were the servants of the divine. And that's been the system in many other places on the planet, where those who serve spirit are supported by their communities. But we don't have that setup here. You know, it's not how it works. So I think that there is a marriage that's happening with us being called to priestess in the world, and as such make it available for those who are called to come into our temples, into our circles, a way to give back energy into the circle so the circle can exist. So I want you to just connoiter that for a moment, because it's a different way of seeing things. And, you know, I'm very clear that those who choose to heart contribute to my temple, to the temple that I'm focalizing, it's not about me. It's about the circle. It's about how the circle can continue to exist, and all the infrastructure that that is created around the circle can exist, you know? And so I think that there is actually a reclamation of the value of this role and function in our culture that is part of what we're redefining, part of what we're remembering with each other. And so do I also feel like any sister should be able to come to circle even if she can't afford to? Yes. And you can set up systems whereby that can happen. Others can choose to sponsor. You know, like I have all kinds of systems whereby sisters who want to be in temple get to be in temple. Like, it's not a case of you can't come into temple if you can't pay. No, then it's not a temple, is it? You know, so I think we have to be, I think it asks us to stretch and to be really mindful and really look at our own issues around money and power and what our truth is and what our integrity is and all of that. And it's uncomfortable. We'd rather not have to look at that. But the truth is that that's what it means to be a modern day priestess, right? We aren't living in the temples of the past. We're being asked to step into, you know, and I call this archetype the alchemical priestess, which really is one who's willing to go out on the limb, to be on the edge, to be willing to get uncomfortable in service to her own growth, but also the growth of all others who would be with her. If you're not willing to get uncomfortable in this facilitation process of a circle, then I question your willingness to actually step into that role, because it's not a comfortable role. It's going to ask you to work on your own stuff in service to your circle's stuff. And that's really the truth. I know that's true for you, Tanya. You know, it's like there's nothing been as powerful in my life for amplifying my own shadow material than being called to focalize circles. It's like, oh no, I have to deal with all of it in myself as well as actually show up for all you. Like, that's the truth. And that's a lot. Yeah. So that's
And
where I sit with it.
and that piece there of the circle is a mirror of my own things. And so when I show up in circle and people aren't showing up, or they're triggered, or whatever is going on for them, while it can be really easy to think that there's something wrong with circle, there isn't. It's actually just a reflection of what I need to look at within myself. And that, I think, has been one of the biggest tools that I've learned of how to hold space, is just keep looking at myself, keep looking and keep that alchemy is what you're saying. You know, it's like, oh, what's the transformation I need? What's the breakthrough I need to have within myself that's then going to shift the energy of the circle and be so I could hold what's going on.
And when you really start to take that on, it changes everything. You
Yeah.
know, I remember years, like 20 years ago, leading circles and you know, and not understanding why there was so much resistance inside the circle, and realizing, you know, now in hindsight, it's because I didn't want to be leading the circle. I didn't want to be facilitating that circle. I had resistance in myself.
Mm.
Of course, that's what, excuse me, was getting amplified in the circle. But at that point in time, 20 years ago, I didn't have this frame of reference to understand it. I mean, I did kind of therapeutically, but this is a way more powerful, a direct stance of mirroring, of saying, you know, there is really, you know, the circle is just a vessel of amplification of whatever it is that wants to get cleared in that circle, in those individuals, in that collective tribe. Right there, it's like a petri dish, right? It's like it's going to breed it and it's going to amplify it until it comes to light and it is healed. And so that, you know, to hold that takes work and skill and commitment, honestly. So I bow down to all those of you who are called to facilitate. Thank you for being willing to step in and step out and be willing to face the parts of you that are scared to do that, and the parts of you that may think, oh, well, who am I to do this? And, you know, the edge that you're putting yourself on, it's really powerful.
Yes. I want to do a little transition here.
Yeah.
You know, as we're talking about owning your worth and doing your work, one of the things that's come up for you recently and as part of this program is the queen archetype emerging. Sovereignty as the key word here. And so if we can transition and talk a little bit about this queen archetype and how she may differ and relate to the high priestess, and how we can draw on her energy as well in circle. Let's talk a little bit about that for a moment.
Sure. So in the mythology that I'm being called to speak and to be the vessel through which a certain myth is being retold or respoken, you know, for me, it all started with the awakening of the priestess archetype in this ancient mythology of like awakening our sacred portal holder, the one who knows how to birth newness into being, and who's really the sacred technician, right? And the way I see it is that she's arrived and she's holding the portal open, and there's this procession of different archetypes that are being reborn through us at this time. And as the priestess holds the portal open, the midwife, right? The first one that's appeared in my sort of inner knowing, dreaming, awakening, and within the temples that I'm curating is the sovereign queen. And what a delicious invitation that is, the sovereign queen. And so this archetype, this year has become very potentized and will be for the rest of the year. I'm going to be offering all kinds of journeys around the sovereign queen this year that Tanya's going to be part of too. And I'm really excited. You know, I'm yet in the mystery around how this is all going to form. But what I do know is that there's a movement, and the words that I keep hearing Mother say to me are, so it's one thing for us to remember who we are and to come out of hiding, right? To step out from behind the veil and go, I am here now. And it's another one for us to then step up and into our lives and to sit in the center of our own queendom and to, as it were, sit on the throne of our own authentic power and to really know what that means. And I want you to feel how the energy shifts in my own body. Like as I call this archetype in, I notice my spine straighten. I notice myself come forward in my body a little bit. I notice myself start to feel this power that is regal and noble and has a certain, it could be discerned as serious, but it's not serious, but it is intentful. And it has intention, and it has a purpose to serve from the heart. You know, there's a courage and a heartfeltness that the Queen has in her being that is about how am I called to serve the evolution of the consciousness of the collective of which I am part of the governance of. Isn't that beautiful? Like I am here as part of the collective governance of that which is collectively being born into consciousness. And it is, you know, as much my queendom as it is yours, for there is only one queendom or kingdom. And that real kingdom or queendom is the one that we are all here living within, and we all are accountable for it, and we are all responsible for it, and we are all called to own the power that we have to create the world that we want to live in. And there is no stander by. There is no outsider. There is no one of us who is not called accountable to actually feel into the shadow of where I have been unwilling to hold power and where I have held power and abused it. And all of it is true. For there is no one of us who is not subject to the shadow of powerlessness and overzealous power. Power that corrupts. And we all know this, and we all point the finger out there because it's very easy for us to see those who are held up as being the ones who are, you know, falling off the pedestal every 5 minutes. And yet what this archetype is asking us to do is to turn the mirror around and to look at self and say, yes, and what about you? Do you just simply think you get to stand back and point the finger at those who are, you know, encountering the shadow and light of power, or are you willing to face it in yourself and actually sit on your own throne, whatever that means to you? So there is this conversation, this initiatory journey that the Queen brings to us, which is, what does it mean to be sovereign? What does it mean to sit as a queen? What does it mean for you to sit in your center of impeccability? And where are you not in alignment with that? And only you can know that, right? Discernment is an internal job. You can't ask others to tell you where you're in your truth. You can ask others to be the mirror to reflect where they feel a wobble, but only you can know what's true. And that's a function of the Queen, knowing what's real and true and being willing to clear up the places where you are not sitting in the center of your own throne. And so this energy is powerful and in some ways confronts us as women, because we have had a model of power that's been fed to us that is not one that most of us can identify with. And if we have, it's felt really damaging. And the power that we've been told exists in the world is one that's based on power over. It's based on pushing down. It's based on, I'm better than you are. I'm superior to you. You know, I have to win. In order to be the best, I've got to win. And that means you have to lose. And we have a whole, that's, I mean, you know, talk about Darwinism and the whole survival of the fittest, and, you know, the whole kind of the ideology through which we've been living, right, is really much based on that. But what if that is not the whole truth? What if that is only one lensing on the hologram of how we could see power? And then we are called into power, right, in a different way. And I'm not going to say that I even know what that is. And that's part of why I'm holding council this year around it, because I'm really curious to see what emerges from the collective around this.
Something's coming through me.
Yeah.
Around these two archetypes and how they're kind of playing together. So when I'm sitting in circle,
yeah,
I'm holding space. I'm in the temple. I'm allowing the divine to come through me for this transformation to happen with the women with me in circle. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like, okay, so that's the work, that's the archetype I'm holding when I'm actually facilitating, vocalizing circle. Then when I step out of circle and I'm standing for this new paradigm in the world and the shift of power on the planet, that's when I'm really standing in queen. Mm-hmm. It's almost like so it's like, yeah, I'm serving in the temple, I'm serving in the circle, but there's a different way in which I'm serving out in the world as this mission-driven leader in my queen. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. So that it's like I'm almost feeling that shift within myself of how I'm holding space in circle, but then it's like this larger mission of, okay, what would happen if we create these circles on the planet and we're part of this collective movement of shifting the paradigm of power? Okay, now I'm in my queen.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. So this is part of what we're discovering, right? Is how these different archetypal flavors and frequencies feel, and the tools that they have to empower us in marrying the internal the apparent internal and external worlds, because truly there's no separation.
Yeah.
As within, so without, as above, so below. That's the core alchemical dictum, right? that there is, this viewpoint that it's out there, but it's not. It's just a projection of what's in here. And so but the queen as an archetype is a bridge into manifestation through the different dimensions into the 3D realm. She's the one who's able to actually, manifest her intentions in the earth realm. She is about governance, and she is about actually, wielding power and being a protectress of the planet and being a nurturer and a protector of all life and being a voice for Gaia and being a voice for the, Gaia's oceans and mountains and, all the aspects of our world, being a voice for the children, being a voice for those women who do not have a voice. These are all functions of the queen. And she is benevolent, and she has a generosity to her that is understanding that when she looks in the eyes of another being, she is looking at another, king or queen. And that it is her role to empower that in the other, that they may step into their power, because only you can step into your power. No one else can do it for you. And that's the queen archetype at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
She and she is to some degrees a role model, and she is to some degrees an activator, an awakener through her embodiment of what it means. And a lot of what I'm in inquiry about is what is embodied feminine leadership? What is embodied divine feminine leadership look like, feel like, taste like? How do we know when we're in it? How do we know when we're creating something from that space as opposed to an old space or an old paradigm? And we're learning and remembering and knowing what this is together. There's no way for us to have at it alone. We can't do this alone. And a lot of what's being activated within our circles, I think, and probably you'll recognize this, is, how are we being called to be with each other in circle, but then how are we being called to bring that into the world? Like, it's not, the circles are the templates where we're doing the deeper work, and then we're being asked to walk into the world. And it's what you're saying. It's like, it's both and we're no longer getting to sit just in the temple. We're actually being asked to come out and govern. And because for thousands and thousands of years, we have not had the freedom to govern. And I know that it sounds ludicrous to us because we live in a reality where many of us have freedoms that were unimaginable to our grandmothers.
Yeah.
Unimaginable to our mothers even. Unimaginable to some women on the planet in other places. Many women in many parts of the world do not have access to the freedom that you and I have. And we know that. And with that comes a certain responsibility. And that's part of the work that many of us are being called to activate and awaken, because we have, for the first time in a very, very long time, an opening. A portal has opened. And through that portal, there can be a rebirthing of something that has been missing for a very long time. And that's why we're being also called, and it feels urgent and it feels very important that we keep activating one another, right? And that's, so much what you're doing with your circles, and your vision for spreading this all over the planet. And well, thank goodness, what a beautiful vision, So yes, And my vision is that women awaken to the power that runs through them and choose to create from that which is, in essence, connected to the one, connected to goodness for all beings, and that keep coming back to that as a guiding, sort of, what's even the word, like a guiding navigation system for how we're being called to be in the world. And yeah, is that work? Yeah, it's work. But I don't know what other work we could be doing at this time, really, then keep coming back to the truth of who we are and how we're being called to serve at this time. So yeah, so I want you to feel that energy of the queen is the word that comes into that is gravitas. There is gravitas to this archetype, but it's not gravitas that's based on being better than. It's gravitas that's based on being exactly who I am. No holds barred. No holding back, and being willing to be accountable for that. And that's the thing that we get squirmy around. But what if, right? So yeah, I'm not going to say this is easy position in consciousness to step into, but it's one that is sorely needed.
So beautiful.
Love it.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what happens. It's so fun.
Yeah, and I'm loving just the emergence of these two. And, we talk about high priestess, queen, mother, and wise woman.
Right.
And having all four of those come alive within you as a feminine leader.
Beautiful.
And this is great, this distinction here. And thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure. Honored to have been here with you all, and to be, to be in this. It's such a joy to be able to be in this conversation and to be in this kind of work together. I mean, how wonderful that we get to do this now.
Yes. And so you have a free gift for our ladies?
I do. I mean, I just want to give it all. But
you have so much to give.
But what I'd love to give you is that you've heard me talking about the alchemical priestess. And so there's a free gift that we have. It's called the alchemical priestess medicine bag. And inside of that medicine bag, there's access to a quiz that kind of lets you know where you are in the birthing of this archetype of the priestess. So go ahead and take that. That's super fun. There's the alchemical priestess credo. This is like a manifesto almost of a collective consciousness coming into being about what it means to walk as priestess in this modern day context. And it's kind of a set of agreements almost that came forward from a collective summit that we had last year that Tanya was part of. And we we ended up developing this kind of guidelines of what it means to walk as a modern day priestess, which was really, really wonderful. And then I believe there's one other piece in there, and I'm not remembering what it is, but you'll just access all of it by getting the link. I think there's a link that we have that will take you to a page and you can download all the goodies. But it's basically a journey into the alchemical priestess and who is she and what's she all about. So it's fabulous because it will help you to understand a little bit more about the distinction between the ancient priestess and who she's re-emerging as within us as modern day priestesses.
Great. So we'll have that link available below the video here.
Yeah. And I look forward to playing with you all in that realm and hearing where you're at in the conception and birthing of this archetype.
Thank you so much. And thank you, ladies, for tuning in and being here with us. And we'll see you next time.
Many blessings.